You did what I did for zombie. Oh, we're live.
Oh that's what it was. I only hit it once, and I hit it more than once. Yes. Hello, everyone. Hello. It is a Sunday. It is a Lori Tech Day. It is a beautiful, beautiful day.
Yes, it is.
I'm putting in the banner too.
Oh, yes, for spoilers. Yes.
Yeah.
Because we will be talking spoilers today.
It will be. That's right. Can you see it now? Because I don't see it.
Did you put a banner? Did you are you saying? Oh yeah, here it is. Bayou Book Thief discussion, spoiler alerts. Yay! And we have someone in our chat. Hello, Stina.
I'm so glad. I was thinking about this morning. I thought, well, I wonder how many people are going to be busy because it's Mardi Gras weekend. And then I thought, it's only Mardi Gras weekend for some of us.
Exactly. 100%.
So welcome. So happy you're here. Hopefully a couple more people start to come in as well. And then I'm sure we'll have people that watch it later.
Mm-hmm.
It's Oscar Sunday too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't watch the Oscars anymore like I used to.
I usually do watch them, but I don't watch them in the same level of enthusiasm that I used to have. Oh, that's okay. Are you okay if we have spoilers, though? That's the question. Because we are probably going to talk about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, at least towards the end when we decide like how we feel about the murderers.
Yeah.
And if we were surprised by them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Stina says she's kind of given up on the Oscars. Yeah, I do like to see what wins Best Picture, and who wins like Best, filmmaker.
Yeah.
Actresses and actors, it just depends on if it's a fave of mine or not. But I do like to know who. And my issue with it is I don't always watch all of the movies. Now, one year I tried to watch all of the movies, and I think I got through all of them but two. And I could see why they were chosen and who ended up winning and why.
Yeah.
But I do think it's very, very important if you can watch everything that's getting the nomination so that you can make a better,
I think so too. And Jackie's seen all of them. So go girl, because I have not. I maybe seen 5, but here's my challenge with this. And I think it's just recent. And I don't blame anybody for doing this. Look, I have this Zulu necklace on, you guys, from Mardi Gras, and it keeps catching on my desk. So it may be about to go. I got rid of my little fancy earlier.
I think your fancy headband was so cute.
But it starts to hurt my head. So I haven't been able to watch all of them. So I started to try to find out, are they streaming somewhere? But then I had this great grand idea. Oh, I'll go to Canopy. My library, I have Canopy. I'll go to Canopy. Well, did you know? And again, this is all movies, not just the Oscar-nominated movies. You have to use tickets now. Well, at least for my library, I have to use tickets, and I can only use 6 tickets a month. And most movies are 2 to 4 tickets per movie.
Oh, wow.
So Canopy is no longer unlimited to me. And I'm a little sad about that because it's public library. But again, they have to pay, I'm sure, to be able to do that. So, yeah.
Yes, I have never used Canopy. So I'm glad you said that. I'll have to see how that works.
See what yours is doing. So I'm getting back in the groove here, guys. I'm going to show your comments too. Is that Phoenix area? Best Book Film Fest? Oh, look at that. Oh, see, I should visit my sister around this time of year then.
Awesome.
I could go watch all of them. Nice. Yeah. So, yeah, I have not seen as many as I would have liked. And a couple of the ones I saw was only because I happened to be wanting to see that particular film. It was before it was ever nominated.
Right. So that usually is what happens to me is I'll see a couple of them just because I wanted to see the film and then they get nominated. But there's also directors I really love and I'm always disappointed when some of them don't get it.
Yeah, me too.
You know that they all deserve it.
Yeah.
I have a thing about award stuff now, just in general, just based on like people or things that have won awards, and I'm like, well, did they really deserve it, or was there some underlying reason?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
And I hope that they don't measure their worth based on the
On
fact if they
that.
actually win or not.
Yeah, because I heard Demi Moore's speech at another award show we watched, and she, waited all these years and kept getting passed over, and her self-esteem was just in the trash, and she didn't.
Yeah,
And then, this happened, which is good, but it took a while, right, for
yeah.
that to occur. And so it kind of just makes me sad. Monet is reading or starting to read Under Lock by Mariana Zapata. I got to get my little notepad out so I can start writing down all your recommendations. I've not heard of that one. That sounds good. Is that a mystery thriller kind of thing, or?
Hey, Linda. Woot woot.
Oh, Linda.
Glad you're here.
Under Lock, Mariana.
Zapata. I haven't heard of that title or that author.
Me either. That's a new one for me for sure. For sure. We're happy you're here, Linda. We're happy you're all here. A workplace romance. Interesting. I love it. I will check it out.
Romance
I read a
in
lot
the
more
workplace.
than I would have ever thought last year. So there we go. All right. So we want to start with some questions about the book.
Well, do you want to start with a little synopsis of what the book was about? Just
we definitely
for point of reference.
Yeah. Now it'll be if I remember all of their names, there's so many characters at the beginning.
Oh yes,
it's always just slightly overwhelming. So the book starts out with Ricky James Diaz, who is originally from New Orleans. I started to say something else and I'm not going to say it. Originally from New Orleans, then they relocated to California, I think, right? Out west.
Los Angeles, the other LA.
With her, with her family and then her parents. And then she found herself leaving LA because her ex-husband, who was a daredevil kind of stunt person, did something that caused his death. And so originally, I think that's why we really understand that she ended up in New Orleans, was because he had died. And she's very
that, and also the fact that her boss was involved in a Ponzi scheme,
right? And that's why we find that out at the beginning, but I think we pretty much do. So
what ends up happening is she's fleeing one LA for another LA to get a fresh start, because she's known in LA, Los Angeles, and she's trying to have a fresh start in Louisiana and not have to deal with that.
Yeah. And you can get lost in Louisiana if you're.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that could definitely happen. So here, I'm going to keep looking down because I have all these different characters. So you start out by meeting Kitty Cat, which I had to laugh, Cat, because it was like, what a perfect name for a character.
I know. I'm like, really?
Kitty Cat is her landlord, so she's just getting used to it. She's just trying to settle in, and she's, thinking everything's going to be fine. And then she ends up finding a job. And what is the name of that place again?
Bon V.
Bon V, that's right. And what she wants to do at this Bon V, it's like a museum and an homage to his family and to this area in New Orleans. What she wants to do is open up a little cookbook kind of kitchen-y little room within this museum so that she can sell some cookbooks and make a little bit of money. And she enjoys curating books, and she was, like we said, working with books in LA, so that's definitely something she's good at. And so then she starts to meet all of these characters that are connected to this museum, and a few out in town as well. So I found the number of characters at first to be slightly overwhelming.
Yes, I did too. And I think it takes so much, she's doing so much character building that until you can get used to, because I was finding myself a little bit confused in the beginning, because I'm like, who is Zella? who
Yeah.
is Lila, and then figuring out, and then I was starting to have to think, okay, put things to associate with them. Like to me, Cookie would have been a better name for the lady that worked in the cafe,
Yeah.
that made the special cookies, and
Yeah.
maybe Zella could have been the children outreach person. It was sort of like trying to balance it all. Now, once I got to know who was who and who was related to who, because that was another thing,
Yeah.
is trying to figure out who was related to who.
Yeah.
Once I got that kind of under control, it was a little bit easier. But I did find
Yeah.
myself having to go back because I also listened to this,
Yeah.
So when
Did
you're
you?
listening, and usually I'm pretty good with a large cast of characters,
Yeah.
but it depends on how developed they are
Yes.
and how different. And some of these characters kind of like you could mix them up pretty easily, in my opinion.
I thought so too. And in fact, it's funny because I'm going to tell you this, and it's sort of a spoiler alert, but we have the warning, so you're fine. But so there's one character named Winifred, which at first I was delighted by because my golden retriever's name is Winifred, and so I thought, well, I'll remember this, right?
Right.
I'll remember this woman's name and what she does. She ended up being, this is pun intended, she ended up being a dog. Like she was really a terrible person.
She was. She ended up being like just somebody you didn't like. But that's one thing I will have to say about Byron is that she has a large cast of characters, but the majority of them are likable.
They were
You do have your ones that are not, and ones that are kind of like middle. They're like they're okay, but they have some flaws, kind of thing. But they could kind of turn it around if they're given an opportunity for redemption. And then, of course, you got the ones that are just absolutely unlikable, and you need unlikable characters in order to,
yeah, you do
kind of have a good balance. Yes. But I do think that this book has a lot more likable characters than our last group read. So you have more people you're rooting for, which helps you want to continue reading the book. And thankfully, our main character, while she has a few flaws, they're not anything that would make you not like her, because they're flaws that we could have ourselves, just human
absolutely
nature kind of stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I mean, other than that somebody's murdered, and then of course somebody murdered that person, but that person that was murdered wasn't particularly likable either. And so sadly that happens in a lot of these cozies, and then you're like, well, I'm good if that's
right. If they got rid of that dude, that's fine.
Yeah,
because he was annoying.
Yeah, he really, really was. But and so and there were some other. So I will say this was one thing that I was puzzled by, and there was sort of this side plot that had nothing really to do with the murders or the relationships at the museum. I know you know what I'm talking about, and it was about the air conditioners. The AC.
But you know what I think the air conditioner was about? I think the air conditioner was a red herring. And that's the one thing I have to say is you do have a lot of red herrings. And, Agatha Christie to me is the queen of red herrings.
It's true.
She always has just enough to never let me guess the killer. I've yet to solve an Agatha Christie mystery.
Yeah.
But she's not overwhelming with them. There were some red herrings in here that it's like, okay, we could have probably gotten away with that. Yeah. And we still would have had a pretty decent mystery going on, kind of thing. Yeah. So for me, I'll just tell y'all right now, not going to give my rating yet, but the two things that for me was too many characters to keep up with. Most of them were developed enough, and those are the ones I remembered the best.
Right. Yeah.
But the other ones, it was sort of like trying to keep them straight. So too many characters for. And I guess she did it because this is the first book in a series. We have to mention that. Exactly. So if any of these characters are going to come back again in Wined and Dined, well, then you know what? You're going to get to know them And if you've got characters that end up getting killed off and you didn't have a whole lot invested in them and they're dead and gone, well, you didn't have to do a lot of character development with them. So I get that. So that's one thing. And then to me, just a lot of red herrings that it's like, okay, you had some really good ones and some twists and some surprises, but you probably could have, cut a couple of these plot lines loose.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. There were a couple of other unlikable people that did have a root in what the trajectory of where this was going. So I was fine with that. But yeah, there were a couple of things that the Winifred stuff, for example, like I wasn't sure that any of that was really necessary. But
well, I think what it is, if you have a large cast of characters, when you're having a mystery, I mean, think about it. Murder mystery dinner theaters do this. So Agatha Christie is known for having these, one site places. The Golden Spoon had a big, large cast of characters. You have more to like dangle the carrot of who really is the killer, because you've got so many people that you're trying to keep your eye on, and it's the person that you least suspect that ends up being the murderer, or whatever. So I get why that is. And also too, like, it's a first book and you're dealing with a community. You're dealing with a community that's a little more condensed.
Yes.
And so I can see that too, because if you're new to a city, you're going to meet a lot of new people. And she's working at a place that has a fairly big staff, and she's getting to know her landlady and the neighbor across the street and the people that work at the restaurant that she frequents with her friends.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it. But that was just one of the things that was a little more overwhelming. And it might not have been so much so if I would have read it with my eyeballs. So that's another thing too. So that's where I'm at.
So Storm has read all three, and I'm glad you said that, because I looked today to see if I thought that 3 was it for this series, because I'm trying not to start a series, which I did last year with Louise Penny, and I'm probably not going to regret this because I think they're good reads, but I didn't realize there were 120 Louise Penny books in that series. But this one I think is maybe done at 3. But I am glad to see that you liked all of them and the author. I wouldn't mind getting the next one and maybe even reading it this month. So I'll kind of keep track of.
Well, Stormy also, I think, has read her other series.
Yeah, she said she likes this author. So yeah, that's what I was going to say. So my next question, Stormy, is which one of the series would you say at this point is your favorite? Maybe, because I'm always curious about that. Yeah. I have
that would be interesting.
I am really, it's just the perfect timing for me, because while I loved the books I read in February for Mardi Gras Readathon, I've been really craving mystery thrillers, and so now it's like I could read them all month and I'll be, it'll all be good, right? So
you'll be fulfilled.
Okay, maybe it's not done. Oh, okay, I'll have to look. But I did see there were 3 listed. Yeah, I think I'll be fulfilled. And so if I went for another mystery, that would be perfect, because it's March Mystery Madness,
Right.
I was looking the other day. I can't think of her name. She does a lot of cozy. That's her YouTube channel is Cozies, and she it's something about beaches and oh gosh, I wish I could remember her name. Anyway,
is it Amber?
I don't think that's her name.
Okay, no, okay.
She laughs a lot. She's hilarious.
Well, I do know Stormy mentioned to me that the 3rd book in this series, the Vintage Cookbooks, does take place around Halloween.
Yeah. Oh, fun. Oh, even better. So I could paste that. You do not suck, and we're happy that you came to say hi.
Yes.
Cajun
yes, thank you.
For favorites. Okay, good. But yeah, I was curious about like if there were tons of them. But yes, it's Beach Bum Bookworm. Thank you, Stormy. She put on
Tiffany.
Yes, she put on a hat, one of those old caps, and she had a pipe last
I
night.
know, I saw that. It was hilarious.
I could not stop laughing.
I loved it. I love that she got into it.
She's so funny. That is, oh yeah, she's hilarious. Thank you for reminding us of that. I love to watch her. So, and I've been watching them, all of her and her friends. And I have a friend who has a channel, Tammy, Believe in Your Shelf. She reads a lot of cozies too.
Mm.
So I think it's time for me to step a lot back into mystery thrillers. I don't know that I mean, it's not like I don't read a lot of them typically anyway, but I think I need a little, I don't know. I just like the size of them and the
Yeah. And the pacing as well.
pacing is
One
good.
thing I thought was interesting, I thought maybe she was originally from New Orleans because she writes it really well.
Yeah.
But I found out that the vintage cookbook series was inspired by her own hobby of collecting vintage cookbooks.
Ah,
She said, I married this to my love of New Orleans and fascination with its legendary female restaurateurs like Ella Brennan, and thus the series was born.
okay.
And then they have some of her top five, NOLA top fives. Her favorite bar is Patrick's Bar Vin in the French Quarter.
Yeah.
Her favorite museum is the Historic New Orleans Collection, which I've been there.
Yeah.
I had to go there a couple of times to do research for Channel 12. And then her favorite quarter eatery is the Napoleon House.
Oh.
Her favorite uptown activity is wander the Garden District, lunch at Commander's Palace, which she does mention that.
Yeah.
And her favorite treat is pralines, of course, and beignets, she has in parentheses. But she really is, she has been writing for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised that she was a TV writer for comedies like Wings, Just Shoot Me, and The Fairly Odd Parents, which is a cartoon series.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting to find that out about her. So yeah, she is definitely an author that I will check out again in the future, especially this series.
Too. She's written plays. I read it somewhere, and yeah, she's just quite fascinating. So I'm excited that you found this one.
This is all we have to thank Jen at Pages and Chaos.
Well,
because she posted this as one of her Advent books that she got during Christmas. Yeah. And when I saw it was from New Orleans and the cover and everything, I was like, you know what? Let's see if maybe this might work for us.
Yeah, you're right. We can thank Jen for that. Very much. I was telling those of you who joined a little bit late, I was telling Kat and whoever was still here at that time or was here at that time, the place that they ate, which I still can't remember what it is, where they would go and have drinks and whatever, has a very similar name to a place that we go to all the time, which is near my daughter's house in Mid-City. And the place we go to is called Bayou Beer Garden. And this one was called Bayou something. But I wondered if she named it sort of as an homage to Bayou Beer. Well, it's Bayou Beer Garden and Bayou Wine Garden. So if you ever go to New Orleans, go to Mid-City. You'll get a little break from the quarter. It's close, but it's not too close. And go to Bayou Beer Garden or Bayou Wine Garden, because in addition to the beer and wine that they have, and you can eat outside, obviously, and inside, they have really great food. I mean, I'm not kidding you. They have really great food. It's just astonishing to me sometimes what they come up with. So, but yeah, I wish I could remember the name of that little bar. That was so funny that they all went into to have their drinks. And I was noticing, I was curious about this LA, native, well, not native, but this girl who's lived in LA for most of her life. And she comes to New Orleans and she starts eating all the stuff that, we're like, oh.
I know. And I love how they're making her like the person to judge the po' boy. I'm like, I don't know how you would really choose. It would be hard. It's called Bayou Backyard.
That's it, Bayou Backyard, which is why I thought it must be named after them, because it is really in a backyard. Like that, you go into you see the building, but then you just keep going and it just goes back. And it's almost like a shotgun house that's actually a house in a yard.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's cool. Those are the kind of cozy places you like to go when you go to New Orleans.
Yeah.
And there's some touristy places you like to go, but you also like to go off of things off the beaten path. That you'll find some really great food to eat.
Yes, you absolutely do. You absolutely do.
So do you want to start with some questions? You
Yeah,
want
I
to
was going
like
to say, let's
continue
start
with
with
some
some
questions?
questions. Are you guys ready for questions too? Those of you, I know Kaylin hasn't finished it, so she may be popping back out. She just couldn't make it work, which we understand. I was getting a little nervous when I got sick. I was like, okay, I got to finish this. I got all these loose ends. I got to get to that book. But it was so easy to just sit and read it for a really long time. It really was, for me, a delightful experience. So yeah, let's look at our question.
Yeah, so I sent Lori some questions that I found with that information I just shared about Ellen Byron. So the first question was, what skills make Ricky a good amateur sleuth? So what did you come up with, Lori, for what you think? We probably have similar things.
Yeah, we probably do. I think what made her a good amateur sleuth was that she was used to, her job essentially was to really explore things and research things so that she could discover their value, which is slightly different than what she was doing here. But she had this experience where this guy had been scamming people. So she had that whole job that was hers, was really kind of prepared her for being a little amateur detective and for looking at things differently, because I don't remember if she said this, or I remember thinking that, you would, if you worked with somebody, and actually that happened to me, although I didn't work with her one-on-one, but she did what I did in a different state, and I worked for a nonprofit, and she embezzled, I don't even remember how much money from the nonprofit, and it was it's a foster care.
Oh,
it was just
awful.
It was awful. She redid her house. She paid for her child's wedding. She just took all their money over time, slow but slow, kept taking their money, and they didn't find out for years. And I had known this woman for like 6 years when this occurred. She was out west somewhere. In fact, I was thinking she might have been from Oregon the other day, but I can't remember. Anyway, I just remember how devastated I was. And she didn't work for me. I didn't work for her, but I just was so mad about that. And I kept thinking how she must have felt just so betrayed by this guy. And that must have made her want to figure out who was kind of, who was doing some things that were causing so much harm for them.
Right. I mean, and then you feel bad too, because like you're guilty by association kind of thing, even though you had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I liked her attention to detail. I think because she was so good at being able to find books and for her former boss, and also she just had a knack for like coordinating these vintage cookbooks with the kitchenware. So she just had a good eye for that. I also think she was very observant.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if a lot of that had to do with the world she worked in.
Yeah.
I also think that she was pretty good, for the most part, about collaborating with people, like trying to work with her coworkers and trying to work with the police, even though she sometimes missed the mark, or like her conclusions were not always warranted. She did have a feel for people. It's almost like she had like a feel, and she would jump the gun and contact the detective before having really any solid evidence. But her intuition about the people did end up panning out right. But the other thing I think that goes for her is that she was very personable. She's very easy to talk to, not a person that puts on airs, not pretending to be something that she's not. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Very, very authentic.
I liked her her personality and the way she was just so kind to people. She just tried to do so much. In fact, going out of her way with those HVAC systems, trying to figure out if they were getting ripped off. It's just like,
just a lot of different things of her trying to like be sympathetic to her coworkers that were having issues. Even when, what is his name? This is how much I don't like him. I can't remember his name. Franklin. I kept wanting to call him Finn.
Right.
Franklin, even though he was doing something wrong by stealing the cookbooks at the beginning, she
Right.
still had some compassion for him.
He did.
It's like, even though he wasn't the most agreeable person, it's almost like she could kind of see the good in people, give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
And the ones that she kind of really decided, okay, they really aren't a good person, she nailed it, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah. She was
Kind of
kind
thing.
to Winifred for the longest time. And
Oh
then all
yeah,
of a sudden she was like, oh no, we're done.
I've had enough.
No.
I've had enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll
So
ask you to go next. Which character surprised you the most, Kat?
I had two. I was surprised by the A Bear guy.
Yeah,
I thought he was a shyster.
I
Like
did too.
he just the way she wrote him, I'm like, he is a shyster, even to the bitter end when he shows up, at the end, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's in on this
Yes,
kind of
I did
thing.
too. I did too.
So I was really surprised about him and what transpired with him. But also I was a little surprised with that Abelard, I think is how you pronounced it.
Yeah, I wondered
And
if
his
yeah,
backstory, I felt kind of bad for him. Like at first I was like, he's kind of a jerk.
yeah,
And but then once you kind of heard the backstory, I felt kind of bad. I was like, you know what? You judged. You judged.
yeah, yeah. You
You
definitely,
judged a book by its cover.
yeah,
So those were the two I was surprised, like really surprised. Other people, just the way she wrote them, I was not really surprised by their actions.
yeah, yeah. Well, I have a weird one because and there's a reason why. So mine was Virgil, and only because, so Virgil had a weird sort of, he wasn't really cemented in at first, he just kind of came and left and, whatever. But what happened to me was when Virgil said that he rescued and transported foster dogs so they would have, because this is like, I do this all the time. And I thought, are you freaking kidding me right now? Like, she wrote a book about my life, only I
Right.
don't drive them up to the Northeast. But I was just like, Virgil was my favorite guy. So from then on, I was like, well, she and Virgil have to get together, like but I don't
Right.
think they ever will. But I just, there's no evidence that will happen. But but they may partner and support these dogs. But that was like my biggest sort of, that was a surprise to
That
me.
was a
Don't
surprise.
see
Yeah,
that.
because it was kind of different, kind of totally out of the wheelhouse.
It really was.
Like, yeah,
Came out of
but
nowhere.
what was kind of neat about him was the fact that he had such a selfless personality.
Yeah.
Like he helped with the children, teaching recipes and cooking classes, and then
Yeah.
also his fostering, and also his relationship with Minna that we find
Yeah.
out later
Which we
on.
find out
So
later.
to me, it's like there's something more to his backstory that I would like to know more
Me too.
about
Yeah.
leading into that.
Mm.
Because I do find you didn't find out a whole lot about him. And I did like that even there's a little bit of like sizzling
Yeah.
below the surface between
Village
him
too.
and
Yeah.
Ricky that I
Yeah.
liked. I liked that it wasn't like all of a sudden, like, let's just jump into,
Yeah.
this relationship. So I like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious for anyone who has read the book, who were you most surprised about?
Yeah. That's
Just
what
so we
we
could kind of compare if y'all on the same page with us,
Yeah.
with that. But I really do think Byron did a great job making her likable characters, people that you could connect with.
Yes.
Like you connecting with the fostering,
Yeah. Yeah. And with the
us connecting with a person that loves books
yes.
and
Yeah.
that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, and the love of the city of New Orleans. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
And the kids' activities, I was really excited that they had all those things, that they all tried to support these kids and parents who brought their kids in and fed them. And yeah, it was like the most wonderful. I thought to myself, I wish there was a place in New Orleans that really had all these things that we could go. There is a cookbook bookshop. At least there used to be. There was a cookbook bookshop. That's all you bought there was vintage cookbooks. And yeah, it was quite something back in the day. Yeah, Stormy, if you're still here, I'm curious which characters were your most surprising,
Mm-hmm.
people or things that happened that were most surprising? Since you've read all three of them,
Yes,
you
that would
probably
be interesting.
more of them. I liked, it was Lila, right? I have to remember to say it right because my granddaughter's name is Lyra. Lila. I thought though that I wanted a little bit more out of Lila.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some characters that I'm hoping will be developed more.
Yeah.
Like right now, I think because of the newness and trying to, I guess we had to be, as the reader, we had to be like in Ricky's shoes,
Yeah.
like meeting these people for the
Yeah.
first time,
Right.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, look at Jamie.
Yeah. I did too. I was sure. And maybe because my experience with air conditioning service repairs has not always been great. So
Well, I just think the way he was written and how he was so like, he wasn't really friendly.
no, he was abrupt. He wouldn't stay. He would just, go up and down and leave and go up and down and leave. Yeah, it was just, I
He
kept
just
thinking,
didn't
why
seem
is
very
he
friendly. But then it was sort of like, she was getting conflicting messages, like people really loved him, but
Yeah,
some people loved him, but they were loyal because of his father before that. So it's
right,
sort of
yeah,
like, well, did you really love him or did you love what the family stood
right,
for? Were you
right.
just trying to be loyal? Because we do
Yeah,
know that, people that live in these small communities or pockets of communities within a
yeah,
city. I mean,
yeah.
New Orleans is a city, but it's not like what I would consider a big city,
No,
when you compare it to like Chicago or New
Chicago or
York or
something.
something
No,
like
yeah,
that. It's
absolutely.
very small to
Yeah,
me in
yeah,
that regard. So you could see someone being very loyal to families who've been around for generations,
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
very standoffish. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he really was. And I kept thinking, why does this keep coming up? Because it just seemed like it was such a weird subplot. And it kind of was a weird subplot, but also it kind of restored some things for you, I guess, as you thought about this.
Mhm.
Because that's the other thing about New Orleans, I would say, is that while it is a fairly large city and it is filled with tourists every single day of every single year, it is also a very interestingly connected
Yes.
community of a series of
Mhm.
communities. And so like mid city where my daughter lives, like while they don't speak like my neighbors and I, like they'll come and feed my dogs and they'll do different things and some of hers will too, but I mean it's just like people are connected in
Yes.
ways that you would surprise you, considering what New Orleans is kind of based on and what you think of it when you're there. But also you have to be careful because there's certain things you should never do, right? And
Yes.
certain people you
100%.
don't want to speak to. But yeah, I mean, like my daughter's neighbor across the street, there was an ambulance and they were picking somebody up the other day and we were all not looking out the window because we were nosy. We were looking out the window because we were worried, right? Like who's sick and what's going on and what can we do? And of course, I'm sure they went as they always do and checked on them later and did all that. But yeah, it's a very the little pockets of little areas, the different suburbs or the different collar communities we used to call in Chicago. But I know they call them something else in Louisiana, but you probably know. I never remember what it is. But just knowing that those little areas of development are filled with people who know each other and go and have drinks together and
Right.
do all the
Right.
things that we saw in the book. So it's very realistic. Stormy says it's been a few years, so she can't remember what much. Yeah, well, good. Then we're glad you that refreshing. I'm so glad you've read all of them and that you like them, because I kept thinking the last couple of days, I'm just going to have to go on to the next book. I'm really
Yeah.
enjoying this. I have to go on. Yeah. So it makes me very, very happy that we chose this one to read. So number 3, the first victim is a book thief. Is there anything sympathetic about him? Oh gosh, not that comes to my mind. How about you?
My first answer is no.
No,
Unlikable. Wasn't too sad.
no.
He was murdered since he wasn't very nice and very shady. To
Yeah.
me, he was a pain in the butt. So
Yeah.
I was like, good riddance.
Yeah, I was really fine with that. And also, I just have a thing about people who take books, like even people whom I've lent books to that haven't returned them. I have a certain feeling about them, and I don't want to, but I do.
Well,
And
he stole, not only did he steal from books out of a store, with
yes,
just one
exactly.
thing,
It's not
but he
just
was stealing library books.
yes, yes. I know.
Right, from the library, who desperately needs their books.
I know. Yeah, I felt the same way. Hey, I'm so glad
Hello,
you're
Swing.
sorry that the Wi-Fi. I know my Wi-Fi's been off and on weird the last few days.
Mine was the other day, but it has been fine since then. I don't know what was happening. At first, I thought maybe there was an issue with StreamYard, but no.
No, I don't think it's that. Stormy says, I like the storyline of her trying to find out more about her biological parents, which goes through all the books. Yeah, I was going to say that must end up being a thing.
Yeah, I did love her parents. I
Yeah,
thought they were hilarious.
I
I
know.
thought the fact that her father sent her with a slugger bat, and she was like, "I'm not going to say anything because he will come to my house and be on my porch with the slugger bat in hand." I mean, I just loved. They sounded like such a great, energetic, fun parents
They really
really loved her. Like,
Yeah,
if you had to be adopted by someone, she got the cream of the crop.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
they're living their best life. I
That's
love
right.
that.
That's right. That's hilarious. Swank says, Happy Read Across America
Yes.
Day. I didn't know that, but happy Dr. Seuss birthday. I did know that. In fact, I was going to try to read a Dr. Seuss this afternoon. I read a middle grade earlier for my middle grade march, and it was a magic school bus because I love those. But yeah, definitely. Dr. Seuss time today would be good. What's funny about this, you guys, to me, what's funny about this is I had just gotten a novella from Amazon First Reads. You know, they send out free books if you're a member, Prime subscriber, whatever. I don't know how it happens, but so they give you 5 to choose from. And this time they gave you 5 to choose from, and then they gave you an extra little novella by Abby Jimenez. Yeah. So I read the Abby Jimenez novella the other day, right before the end of the month. Very quick. And there was a baseball bat situation in this particular novella, very different tone, very different reasons. But I was just laughing because I had read this novella where this baseball bat came up more than once. And then I end up over here in this book with the same thing.
It is funny what Stormy's saying, that he wants to send her another bat.
That is hilarious. I love that.
Yeah, I can't imagine anybody being sympathetic to Franklin. I mean, I would be shocked if anybody who read this book was sympathetic to him. Although Ricky, I just think it's part of her personality.
Yeah.
But, she felt a little bit bad about it or whatever. But, he did get under her skin also. And the more she found out. But then, I mean, I guess they ask him that question because he did have a daughter. You don't know what he was like prior to this or what is driven him to this.
Yeah.
But he wasn't developed enough for us to care.
To know what happened to him. Yeah, you're right.
So I didn't feel bad about him getting fired because he was a thief. And then finding out that he was stealing from the library made it even worse.
It's just worse. That's right. Mm-hmm. I know, it's just worse. And then the people that were his landlords that were going through all his books and they were helping and swapping with her and stuff. I thought, oh, that was really nice. That was really nice. Those are nice people.
Yeah. They turned out being turds, didn't they?
Jamie loved her dad too. She said her dad gave her a small hammer. Girl, I had a little small case of little things that I needed everywhere I went. I had to have that little small case in case something happened. Yeah.
That is a great idea, Jamie. But you know what? A tip I will tell y'all that I learned when I worked for Father Jamin at St. Margaret Church in Albany. I learned from a previous secretary that was there because I was his secretary for like 9 months. And there would be times when I would be by myself. And Miss Polly told me that because I found a can of Raid in the cabinet. And I was like, what is this for? And somebody said, oh, that's probably Miss Polly had that in there. Well, come to find out, Miss Polly would keep a can of Raid by her bed. Like, some people keep like a gun or whatever. Well, she had a thing of Raid. She was like, and she told me, and I had one in the office because if somebody was coming to attack me, I was going to shoot them in the face with the Raid. Because one, you have a pretty good, like you could be a pretty good distance from them. I guess you would just have to worry if there was a fan blowing because it would be like getting you back in the face. True. But she said that's what she would do because it would give her. And she was an older lady too. It would give her time to like I get a head start. I was like, that is a wonderful defense mechanism for people, especially
Yeah.
if you live by yourself. I mean,
and you don't have to, because pepper spray is small and there's a complexity to getting it opened and using it. You know what I mean? Like I took a self-defense class one time and I remember thinking, this is not going to be easy.
yes, and if you don't, and the other thing too about like pepper spray or bear spray, I know they sell that at
Yeah, they do.
Academy,
Yeah.
is if you don't check it
Yeah.
periodically, it gets clogged like hairspray.
That's right.
So what are you going to do?
That's right.
Stand back. I'm going to spray you. And then you go and it's gummed up. It's
Yeah.
like, then they're going to beat you over the head and not take you seriously.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I think that was a great idea.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Yeah, Jamie,
So,
great idea too. So now see, we're all going to be safe.
well, what's funny about it is I told my neighbor next door, because when her husband died, she was by herself.
Yeah.
And, you know, she has adult children. She had an adult daughter that wasn't living in town. So basically she relies on her neighbors around her.
Yeah.
And somebody had knocked on her door one time, like selling magazines or something. And I told Rita about it. And my husband's like, you better be careful telling people that, because what if they spray somebody that isn't a criminal and then they're going to want to come and sue you? And I'm like, well, then you shouldn't be shady coming up to people living by themselves, you know?
I could defend my decision to do that if that was the case. Yeah.
And then you chunk the can at them.
I know, that's exactly right. That's what I was thinking.
Oh
I love it. Because
oh my gosh. Yeah. So yeah, I think women should have something in their car, like a hammer or a bat or something, because while you do take a chance of, you know, them getting it or whatever, at least maybe if you tussle enough, maybe if they're yanking on it, you could push them back and then run. My whole thing is run if you can run. They're going to be startled enough by the fact that you're not going to comply with them that kind of might, you know, unless they're such a professional, you know, they're going to be like off their guard and like, oh my gosh, I picked the wrong person.
Yeah. So
yeah, we have the bat in the raid.
Yeah. Interestingly, and this isn't really, it's maybe a tiny spoiler, but it's not plot related necessarily. But the bat in The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez, they had a sock over it. So if a person goes to grab the bat, what happens? They pull away with the sock, then they're caught off guard because
then you can whack them.
And then you get them.
Ooh,
I know.
Ladies, we are learning tips for self-defense today.
We're gonna be all right. That's right. We're going to be all right. Thanks, Abby Jimenez and your friend at the old job and Swank and everybody's thought about it. Jamie with the hammer. Yeah, we all.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What are Ricky's personal strengths and flaws? Oh.
So as far as strengths, I put that she is genuinely a nice person.
She really is.
She's knowledgeable about books. She has business sense. I think she's a supportive friend. She's an attractive person.
Yeah.
Those are my strengths. What about you? Do you have any?
Those are the same for me too. And I also felt like she was so fair-minded.
Yes.
Like if she got those books that were super cheap, she didn't mark them up, and she tried to make sure that, you know, people got something that they really wanted.
Yes. Fair-minded. And you know, it came back also too, you know, like her business sense to me, I loved how she was like explaining to the girl with the wine goblets or whatever, and then she ends up getting an invitation, because that's just how likable she is, and her fairness and what she wants to do with it. But yeah, I do think she is, again, it goes also hand in hand with her being like a person that gives like the benefit of the doubt, you know, and she's not a shyster, because if it was Franklin would have been like, oh yeah, give me all that for 50 cents.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sell it for $500. And he'd be like, you know, say something like loser, you know, what you have, you know, something like that.
It was just ridiculous. I also remember, was it Theo? It was somebody that helped her redesign helped her, took it upon himself to redesign her little shop. Yes. But instead of just taking it all back the way it was and getting really, really aggravated, she worked with him to, you know, to be able to improve it without it so completely not the way she wanted it, which I thought was very, very kind.
Oh, and also too, she was very fair-minded when she caught Theo, and knew that he was the one that was, lifting stuff from the estate, and basically instead of going to tattle on him, was like, you go talk to him and explain your situation. And I felt kind of bad for him in a way that he had been cut out of the will because of whatever the circumstances. People make a lot of rash decisions, emotional decisions that they don't realize, if they don't have time to kind of fix the issue between one another, that it has a lasting effect, and that whoever takes over isn't going to be as like-minded.
That's
if
right.
That person could have been redemptive or whatever the case may be. But she was very fair about that, because she could have gone and scored brownie points with Eugenia and said, hey, look at me with my skills.
Done a whole lot. Yeah, absolutely. She could have done a whole lot more than she did. Swank says she had deep-seated confidence issues because of her birth parents. She was a nice and creative woman. Yeah, I would say that's true. And I was thinking about some of the things that people assumed she had done, and then they found out that that she really hadn't. At least one in that particular instance, that he was certain that she was the one who told on him, and and she really hadn't done it. But also, I think she knew when she had to speak up and say something. So I would say that was her strength as well. Like she could maybe be a little bit overly sympathetic, and maybe she went above and beyond, especially with those people with all those books, the landlord after Franklin died. But she definitely was, she tried to be fair and sympathetic and help people grow. So, yeah.
I say, as far as flaws, I like that what Stina was saying. Yeah, that she kind of lacks confidence outside of her area of expertise.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think about it being because of, the birth parent issue. She's not super trusting.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that is because she's new to this area. She doesn't have really a lot of experience. So I gave her the benefit of the doubt with that. But I think the lacking of confidence is like her insecurity.
Yeah.
And I do think she tends to feel guilty for things that are out of her control. Right. Like she feels kind of guilty about what happens to Franklin, even though that had nothing to do with anything that she did. He deserved to be fired. She shouldn't feel guilty for that. He didn't deserve to necessarily get killed, but she shouldn't feel guilty about that either, because again, it was out of her control. And I do think that sometimes she jumped to conclusions that, didn't, like, I think about Virgil with this, or, with kind of questioning even like maybe Lila at one point, and it didn't really ever come to fruition.
Yeah.
But I think what I liked about that, I don't know if that was necessarily a flaw per se, or just a personality trait.
Yeah.
But what I liked about it is, in all of the instances, it seemed to lead to like a funny or humorous outcome.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah. Which was what made us all just kind of keep going and keep laughing. Yeah. Yes, Theo was very irritating.
Yeah, he was a whiny baby.
He sure was. She did get rewards, and she did keep growing, and she did keep connecting to people and finding ways that they could kind of mutually benefit, or they started to get to know her better. So they were maybe more likely to confide in her. Like Lila keeping under wraps that, that she couldn't get anybody to stay, and just like working herself to death. And obviously she didn't know why anybody wouldn't stay. Although I did know, like I realized early on that Winifred was messing that whole thing up. I just knew it because she was getting all the money.
Right.
Getting all the tips. It was like, of course I'm going to do that.
Well, even Abelard, the fact that with Abelard that, to see if he would like draw pictures or make, do some art or whatever, it was like everybody could have benefited from Ricky being there, because that's where her wanting to be a team player.
Yes.
And kind of being a good coworker and supportive of one another. It's like, that's where I think she just had really good business sense. She's just really, at good about that. And it's like, I think some people like Theo, for example, there was underlying jealousy. Same with
Oh,
Winifred,
definitely.
underlying jealousy.
Yeah.
I mean, Winifred also, well, we'll go on our tour and
Yeah.
we'll just not have time to come visit the gift shop
Yeah,
after. Well,
exactly.
you know, who are you really hurting?
I
I mean,
know.
you're hurting the whole entire
Yeah.
Bon V family,
And all
you
the people
know?
that came to see all the things they wanted to see.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a wrench works. I think that's a good idea. Wrenches can be quite
Yes, I
heavy.
think so too.
Yeah, I think that works really, really well.
I had a
Yeah,
feeling about Winnie.
I just knew Winnie was not, and it made me so sad because Winnie is my, my little dog. I mean, it's such a sweet name, and anyway, yeah. All right,
Did
what
you
are
name
some of this?
Winifred? Did you name Winifred from Hocus Pocus?
We did. Yes, we did, absolutely. Isn't that funny you said that? A lot of
Yes.
people ask me that, yeah. A lot of people ask us if Lyra was named Lyra after the Golden Compass, and she was.
Yeah,
She
because
was.
that's the thing. It's not a common name. I don't see it. I
No,
mean, I don't
yeah,
hear it often, and that's
yeah,
really the only name until now that I've
yeah.
ever had a book character or a movie character.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We loved the Golden Compass so much as a family. We all read it and we all just loved him. So that was her baby's name was Lyra. Yeah. So what I lost my screen went quiet. Let's see. What are some of the social and preservation issues raised in this book? That's a great question. Did you write these yourself or did you look them up?
No, this was part of this book guide that I
Oh, gotcha.
found. It was
That's very
on her, it
good.
was on her website. And I was like, you know what? These are really good questions.
They
Instead of us
really
having to
are.
try to come up with, the same type of questions over who's your favorite character? Who's,
These
I've
are really
just
good.
figured these
Yeah,
had a little bit of depth to them.
yeah, I agree. Love these.
Yeah, I think there were probably less social issues in this book than our past book, that
Absolutely
we had
true.
read. But I do think, social media played a part,
Yes, it did.
um, and
Yeah.
just media in general, because that can, make or break something. She was trying to leave her life behind in Los Angeles because her husband, of course, was on a social media platform.
Right.
He had a
Yeah,
channel and was doing all these daring things. And of course, his death was documented. It even is brought up because they have
yeah,
kids that come to the museum and ask about
yeah.
it, people that were
Yeah,
fans of her
yeah,
husband. And then,
yeah,
of course, her being an associate of a boss that was involved in that Ponzi scheme.
yeah,
It's like she wants a fresh start, even to the fact that she changes back to her maiden name so people don't make that connection. And that's one of
yeah,
her fears, is that, here she's given this great opportunity. And if
yeah.
people find out who she really is, which they do, how
Right.
it's going to impact Bon V
Mm.
and her job and all that. But I loved when Eugenia came out and was like, if you are here because of the museum, get in this line. If
Yeah,
you're here because of the gift shop, get in this line. If
right.
you're here just because you want to check out, Ricky and the scandal and all that kind of stuff, I'm kicking you to the curb.
Yeah,
Goodbye. There's
I love
nothing to
that
see
so
here. And I
much.
love that she had Ricky's back,
Yeah,
because Ricky really was concerned. What if it gets out, kind of thing.
yeah,
So my thing, and that's going to be a question I'll keep for later, because there's another question about the social media.
yeah, yeah.
But I do think it does, in this day and age, social media and the media, just
Mhm.
newspapers, whatever, the news,
Yes, yeah.
can impact a lot of things.
Not in a good way. I mean,
Right.
sometimes it does, but
Right.
very
Right.
often not in a good way. Yeah,
And
yeah.
also class played a part, not as a
Yeah,
huge, but enough that you knew where you stood. And so you had
yeah,
a good balance of working class folks,
yeah,
like Minna. Minna
yeah.
is probably like on a lower tier of how
Abelard, we
she's
don't know if
benefiting. Yeah,
Abelard
Abelard
has money or just
financially.
yeah, yeah,
You've
exactly.
got the middle working class, which is Ricky and the docents and,
Yeah,
the people who are working at the Bayou backyard kind of thing. And then,
yeah,
of course, you've got the wealthy, those that have social status. And that was the Charbonnets and Madame is it Noisette?
I guess Noisette. Yeah, I would say.
Yeah. So then you have them, and I know
The people
exactly.
that wrote books that you never realized they wrote.
Right. Which I thought that whole mystery, behind the murder was
I
intriguing. I
love
really
that.
did.
Yeah, yeah.
But I can envision these women because, being a part of New Orleans, especially when I worked at Channel 12 and
Yeah.
had to engage with the volunteers or people who were the benefactors of public television. And, just you can envision what these women were dressed like, how
Yeah.
they talked, the jewelry that they wore. I mean, that's
Every
just, I
time
could
it's on,
envision
I could
them. I could
see,
envision
yeah,
them.
I could see different things. And I've had the most beautiful pleasure of meeting a lot of people in that area through work that I've done and just through other people that have introduced us. And these are some amazing,
Mhm.
strong women who are also absolutely gorgeous and kind. And, and you just think about, they will not go out, without this on or this happening or this, it's just really, it's a way
And
of
so,
life.
and I do think, Madame's hiding under a pseudonym is valid
It's a
because she
did.
did not want to scandalize her family. But I
Yeah.
love how she's just like telling her son, too bad, so sad. I mean, really? I'm of
Yeah,
the age and I'm proud of what I did. It gave a
exactly.
lot of women pleasure when they couldn't,
They
be
didn't
who
have
they wanted to
access.
be.
Yeah,
And
that's
you're in a different time.
right. No.
I mean, I couldn't imagine anybody being, I would think you would have more people being like, girl power,
Yeah,
that you wrote would what would be considered, I guess, smut today. But I
yeah,
can't imagine it being too much like, what is happening today,
yeah.
actually.
No, I'm sure it was tamer, but
I mean, they might have showed some leg or something. I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
don't
I
think
don't know.
they
Yeah, I almost would love it if Ellen Byron would write a book, like write one of
of her
Madame's
book.
books.
That would be
You know
fun.
how Richard Castle, like I don't
Yeah,
know if you've ever watched Castle, but there are books that are written by Richard Castle,
right.
the
Yeah,
character. So I
yeah,
just think that would be kind of cool if you could get one of the romances.
yeah, that would be fun.
I think that would be fun. I think people would buy that
We should
because
write her an email.
it'd be a good marketing thing, I think, for her
Yeah,
series.
yeah, we should email her and say, you know what, we would love that. I've seen several authors have done that, and it's just, it makes it continue to kind of come alive, and you stay rooted in they're fictional, but you stay rooted in the fact that these are people that you really care about. So they're on
Right.
your mind, and you want to, yeah, I love that a lot. Yeah.
And then the only other social issue that I thought was the whole thing of plagiarism. You have
Yeah.
vintage books that are being plagiarized with a new title, new author, but with the same content. So it goes all in
Yeah.
hand with like stealing. I mean, you're
The
stealing
theme.
physically
The whole
with,
theme of the book was around who was stealing what.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's all, like stealing and that kind of stuff, and what you would do to hide your secrets,
Yeah.
with the
Yeah.
stealing or whatever. So those were what I thought about the social and preservation issues. Do you have anything to add to
The
that?
only thing I'll add is I was horrified thinking about when I read that about how he was publishing the same books, but under a different name and a different author. How in the moment I thought, is that happening? Does that happen? Do people discover that yeah. And that, to me, that's just the most egregious sin you could commit against an author who has talent and who has created this story, that it just made me so angry. There were so many moments I was just so angry at some of these people.
Yeah, I mean, just so unethical.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And now, I think with AI, which I guess
Mm.
comes to the next question, which is, Vicky has reasons to dislike social media. How do you feel about it? And this is a little bit different than that, but not really. I really am resistant to this AI situation, although I sometimes use it now to revise emails when I'm in a hurry. I'll have to admit, because I don't always pay attention. And so I'll run it through with a little, wand, and then it comes back and I make changes and I send it. That's the only thing I've done so far. But I got to tell you, I have a lot of fear around and then I got stuck. I shared something the other day, and several people, my kid first off, my kid always loves to say, "Oh my God, they got you," So she said, "Mom, that's AI. That's not real. That's not a real video." And I had no idea. I was sleeping,
Yeah.
I was just looking at it real quick, and I shared it. So I kept saying, and people kept saying, "It's AI, it's AI." Yeah, I heard. Right. I'm good. But I didn't really know for a minute, right? Like and I wasn't carefully looking, but I think the danger of that is that, yes, people's work, people's drawings, people's, photographs, people's everything. They're just, social media has no space to be able to preserve your content. And we don't even know who all can see our content, right? Like right now, especially, I would say that's a big issue that keeps coming up for a lot of my clients too, with how people are able to see how much of their data are they able to see. There's just a lot of scary stuff right now. And so,
well, I mean, if you think about it, somebody could, like, you do all your hard work,
yeah,
and you might not even be in a place where you're even profiting, to your fullest potential yet, or whatever. You're making a living, but you're not truly profiting to where you can actually be.
Yes.
And someone takes your idea,
yeah,
and they run with it, and then they end up exploding into something. It's like, what, how can you, even fight it, because, like, I'm not copyrighted on my content that I put out there, on my YouTube channel.
Oh.
I mean, there are all kinds of ideas that are floating out there. So who's to say that somebody wouldn't take something that you've worked hard, your idea or whatever, and even if you have copyrighted it, if they can manipulate it in such a way that it looks like an original piece of art or an original story, like writers right now, I know that's one of the things they talk about all the time on Happier in Hollywood. They're TV writers, and they're scared because they're like, even though AI can help them in some aspects, I think there are benefits of it, but when you're, whatever it is, social media platform, AI, whatever, when it stops being a servant, and starts becoming a master,
absolutely,
that's when you draw the line of where there's a problem.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And also too, the privacy issues. There should be a point where your privacy, like, you should not have to have everybody in the world knowing your private stuff. And, like, it seems recently, two things that I've seen on YouTube where somebody leaks something about somebody, and it's like, that was not your place to do that.
No.
But it's sort of like people are just always wanting to know the nitty gritty and, like, the sordid details of something, that they forget that behind those details is a human being that has feelings and has children.
Yes, exactly.
It's so crazy. So I think this is the thing about social media. You have a lot of negativity things that are attached to it, but you also have positive things like community and connection, and that we need in a world where everything's chaotic and crazy. I mean, I know you can attest to this, that you have a community that you really love interacting with.
Oh, absolutely.
They bring you joy. They support you. They encourage you. If you're having a bad day, just be able to spend time with people that value the content you're being out there. You know how you are when you're following a content creator. How you want to support
I would
these
never
people
want to take their stuff. In fact, I tried really hard not to ever, like, sometimes I'll say, "Ooh, that's a cool video. That's a cool concept." But then I'm like, I don't want to take that concept because that's there. You know what I mean? But
or if you do, at least give credit to where credit's due. Like, I've seen lots of my content creator friends who'll say, "I thought this was such a neat idea that such and such did this on their channel, that I'm jumping on this wagon and I'm doing my thing," or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, because you're given, but AI is not like that. AI is not going to have a disclaimer that says, "Oh, I got this information from these 4 different artists to create this." Now, do I think it's fun to create some fun pictures with it. I've done that. I mean,
Yeah,
my folklore February, I dressed myself as a princess.
I
Do I
saw.
wish I could look
I
that attractive? Oh yeah, honey, I would like to be that hot as a witch. But the thing
saw.
is it's in fun. I'm not hurting
That's
anybody
right.
by
Yeah,
doing that,
that's right. That's right. You didn't call
and
you.
I'm using, so it wasn't like I used somebody's picture,
Yeah,
that drew something and then like Photoshop my face on
right.
that
It
picture.
does
So
happen.
to me, I'm like, if it is an AI generator,
Yeah,
then I'm okay with that.
yeah,
But,
I agree.
all in fun, that's one thing. But if you're going to profit off of it,
Yeah, I
I don't
know.
know.
So good news is we are pretty sure we're automatically copyrighted when we create
Oh,
something. So that's
that's good to know. Thank you,
have
Stina, for
not
telling
clue
me
that's
that.
true. Yeah, yeah. And Jamie's right. It's always been so difficult, and now it's even harder. You're absolutely right. And it's coming up more and more often in my sort of what I try not to be on social media much because it is just very depressing these days. But yeah, so this is what I was going to say. I saw a movie shot of a movie the other day that's coming out, and I know there's two actresses in it. It might be a Frida McFadden movie. If you know, you
Oh,
can say who it is or what it is. And I saw the photo of it on social media, and I think it's The Housemaid, maybe. Is it that one, you guys? Anyway, that could not have been a real photo of a real actress. It was so weird looking. I just kept looking at it like, that's got to be AI. That's got to be AI. So I'm curious if anybody else saw it.
yeah, I'm not surprised by that because I have seen that they're even doing an AI generator where if you want to get your headshots done,
You can
you can
absolutely
actually
do
get
that.
your headshots
Yeah.
taken from
Yeah.
a picture, which I'm like, oh my goodness. I just think to myself, you're putting a lot of people out of work. Like you've got
That's
photographers,
right.
that is their forte,
Yeah.
is to go pay them to do a headshot for you.
Absolutely.
And they're skilled. And there's things
Yeah.
about it that your AI can't do. Your AI can't necessarily bring out your personality in that headshot the way a
That's right.
photographer can.
That's right.
And I'm just saying that just from experience of having to take
Yeah.
headshots,
Yeah. Me too. Me
um,
too. Yeah.
there's so many things about language and stuff like when you're writing, and that's not to say I haven't, like you said, like with an email, trying to figure out a good way of saying stuff. Well, guess what, you have to at least generate the ideas to put that in there for them to come up with something,
Yeah.
but then you've got to make it your own. So if they come
Yeah.
up with some kind of wording that it's words that you would never use, it's like,
Right.
people,
They
put
would
it
know it
into your
wasn't me.
speak
Yeah.
of what you have to say,
Clearly
because
people would know
that's
it
part
wasn't.
of what people like about people is their personalities. They
Yeah.
don't want a robotic personality. They
Yeah.
want
Absolutely.
somebody that they can connect with,
Yeah.
or whatever. Or I could see it if you were trying to figure out grammatical issues or whatever.
Yeah, which
All
is
that. Now,
mostly mine. Or I'll use, here's one of my flaws. I use a bunch of contractions in emails back to people. And then whenever I have this, whenever this thing first started saying, do you want us to correct this for you? And I said, yeah, what I realized is it took out a
they
lot of
flagged everything.
because
Yeah.
I'm just in a big hurry, but it sounds much better when it's not all contraction.
Well, my rule to my students when I taught writing to them was, unless you're writing dialogue for
Yeah,
a character,
right.
or it's informal writing where you're just writing it to like a
To a
friend in
friend,
a text or
to your
whatever,
mom. Yes,
that is appropriate for contractions. But
that's
if
right.
you're writing anything that you want to be polished, you're
Yeah,
writing a paper for something, or you're writing an email to somebody who you're
right.
trying to impress, or like, want to sound like you're professional,
Yep.
get rid of the contractions. And my
Yeah,
kids knew they would lose points
yeah,
if they use contractions for anything in any paper they turned in for me.
yeah,
You're going to lose points for contractions,
yeah.
because I'm sorry, I know it's a shortcut, but it's not that short.
It's not that hard to, yes, yes. So I'm glad because it's forcing me to rethink some of the things that I say. So yes, with the romance covers, I know are probably the worst. They've always been so shopped, photoshopped over the years anyway, with these guys with these big biceps and they're holding these women, all the stuff that, I mean, they're so
Oh,
funny.
Fabio.
Yeah, exactly. Um, It's not even true AI, a complex search tool. Oh, okay. Huh. Well, that's scary. Margaret is with us.
Hey,
So
Margaret.
happy you're here. I feel like humans look at AI images and wonder if they're real, like dogs must look at washing machines.
I love it, Margaret. She's so
That is
funny.
hilarious. That is hilarious. I know. I wonder what my dogs think about different things. When the vacuum cleaner goes on, my cat is just like, really?
Mhm.
A lot of fake IA generated movie posters. Yeah, I guess there must be. That must be the new
Well,
wave.
I think what it is whenever something is created, I mean, think about how it was when the internet first came out, or think about anything new that came out, the iPhone or whatever. You
Yeah,
know, people are very excited about a new
sure,
tool, what it can do,
sure.
and all that. I think
Yeah,
what happens, like I said before, when it becomes something that it is taken someone's livelihood, or it's doing some kind of harm, or
yeah,
something to where it's like going to put people out of work, or it's not as authentic as it needs to be. I
yeah.
think that's where it becomes a problem. I mean,
It
it
does.
just
Yeah.
crosses the line. But I think AI is here to stay.
I
So
do
the
too. And
thing
there
that
is
you
some
have to
talk about making AI coaches and making coaching sessions with AI, and people are saying yes to it because it's cheaper and they can access it when they feel like it. And so, but there's been a lot of talk in my industry about, are we going to be replaced by AI? And my thing is, it's a one-on-one interaction. If you really want that, then you're going to hire somebody to have that human
right,
one-on-one
right.
reaction with you. But yeah, but it is possible that a lot of people are going to be put out of work.
Well, and I mean, one of the things about AI too is that I was thinking about, and I just lost my train of thought. Oh, shoot, I had a good point about it. Oh,
It'll
I know what it is.
see, it'll
You know for a fact when you're reading a book by authors that have been around for a long time, for decades, you know that when you're reading a book by, say, somebody like Stephen King
yeah,
or Patricia Cornwell, or, I mean, I don't know,
yeah,
James Patterson,
you
people that have been around for a long time,
yeah,
even within the last couple of decades, perhaps, prior to AI really getting out there, you know that these people, pretty sure, I would say 90 whatever, 99ish% sure that they wrote their books,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
think what's going to happen though, it's like you've got these newer authors coming out. How many of them are relying on AI to write their book?
yeah,
Or a good portion of their book, to where you as a writer are having to compete with that. Now, Margaret's a writer.
yes, I
Okay.
know.
So Margaret can probably weigh in on this. Um,
Yeah, it's
at what point do are you paying for that person, or you're following the person that may not even actually be creating whatever it is that you're reading.
yeah.
So I don't know.
It comes down to ethics for me. It comes down
Yes.
to ethical behavior,
Like,
and
to me, I don't
yeah,
think that you can put your name on a book. Like, I know, like she was saying something about James Patterson. James Patterson writes with a lot of authors. I think he does that to help authors gain some credibility,
he
or
very well
to,
might. Yeah,
like kind of being a ghost writer, but not being the ghost kind of thing.
yeah.
And I do know, like, Mary Higgins Clark later in her career was starting to write with Althea Burke, I think is her name. Althea
Oh,
Burke.
really? I had no idea.
Yes,
Yeah.
you have some books that they were writing together. Well, I mean, Mary Higgins Clark was getting up in
She was like,
age.
and I was gonna say she was old. Yeah.
So the thing about it is, I could see possibly having someone who was a writer. Now, Althea Burke has written books on her own
Yeah.
also. Now,
Right.
I don't know if she was writing books prior to partnering with Mary Higgins Clark, or if partnering with her gave her the confidence and the skill to go write on her own. That
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, neither.
But with that being said, I don't think anything's wrong with that if you have it's being stated that
Yeah.
these two people are
Yeah,
together.
they're very upfront
It's
about it.
not
They were
like
always
if you've
upfront
got Joe
about it.
Smith, who wrote
Yeah.
a book under AI, is saying Joe Smith wrote this book.
Yeah.
It would be different if it said Joe Smith wrote this book with the help of an AI companion.
Right. Exactly. And then
Then
you
you
know,
could choose if you want to read that
that's
book or
right.
not.
Then you would know. Yeah. Use of AI in The Brutalist. Oh, is very controversial. It was used in correcting. No kidding. Well, I'm just going to say, Jackie, having lived in Hungary and trying to learn to speak Hungarian, I understand why they maybe felt like the need to do that. However, yeah,
But this is my thing. If it was stated ahead of time.
Maybe not though, because she says maybe it was. Yeah.
Well, my thing is if it was stated ahead of time, because I think it was a Best Picture nominee.
Yeah.
Unless the Oscars had something stated in their policy that said you cannot be a nominee if you have anything that is AI generated.
Yeah.
And then they got nominated and then they found out about it. Then, of course, the nomination should be withdrawn. However, if the Oscars don't have anything in place for that, and they get nominated, and the only thing is for that Hungarian voice part of it, but the rest of the film can stand on its own, then you can't blame them for doing something that is allowable.
Yeah.
So
to change some of the copyright laws. It should and needs to change.
Right. And so don't be surprised, perhaps, if next year for the Oscars, they have new information added to their policies of who can be nominated.
That's right.
For stuff like that. So, I mean, that's something that the Brutalist probably, you know how you have the warnings, like don't use your hairdryer in the tub? Because somebody used a hairdryer in the tub and electrocuted themselves. It's the same thing. Until somebody does something, it's not going to raise any eyebrows.
That's true.
Now, if they were trying to hide it, then it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth because you weren't up front and something in you said, this might not be a good idea. If you ever have that, this might not be a good idea, and you go ahead and you do it, and you hide it, then it probably wasn't a good idea.
That's what my grandmother always said. If you have to
question yourself.
Exactly. Is this something I want to do or I should do? Or am I going to get in trouble if I do this? Don't do this.
Right. Right. Because there's something tickling your brain saying,
this might not be. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I did not necessarily realize that AI generated headshots of authors were coming out for people who weren't. Oh, that's very scary. That's very scary to me. Thanks for telling us.
Yeah.
It's important to know. It is true, although I think he is getting a little bit better about sometimes sharing who's written with him, but it's usually, from what I can see, only when it's celebrities or people that are well known in some way, or he's trying to maybe promote them.
Yeah.
Yes, I think you're right. I don't know if it's ever been revealed because I don't pay that much attention to this author, but my sense about Nora Roberts has probably been that she's not. I mean, how could you keep up with that many? And she has another, name that she writes under.
Yes.
So I don't know how you could keep up with that many, but maybe she's a superpower that I just don't. I don't have that superpower. Replacing dialogue. Yeah. Oh, gosh. Well, and
I do know that sometimes dialogue is changed sometimes, and also things are added after the fact. And the only reason I know that is because I took an ADR looping class in New Orleans. And that is basically when you add things like kind of like doing a voiceover for like a cartoon character. Now you will be shown in the credits if you are on an ADR looping team.
Right.
Look in your credits the next time. So for example, for example, it was such a fun class because I had no idea. If you were if you're watching an airport scene and you're hearing a lot of people talking in the background, la 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 la, that's ADR looping 99.9% of the time. And what it is you have a team that is in a studio and they're watching the footage go by, and you're like talking in this language and you're doing this or whatever. It's fascinating. Or if you are also adding sound effects. This was fun. We were watching a cartoon and there's something where a character was rolling down a hill or whatever, and they land at the end and you had to go humph,
Yeah.
And then that was added into it, or there was just
Yeah.
different things about what you're like adding to the scene or whatever. And then
Yeah.
also like you think a sound effect is like a person, sounds like they're walking on the ground, and
Yeah.
you see in that, but it's really somebody who's in the studio like rubbing their feet on something.
On little stones or rocks or something. Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
it's very fascinating to me. So
Yeah.
that has always been a part of
Yeah. Yeah.
Hollywood. You know
That's
what I'm saying? But I don't have a problem with that if the person is getting credit for that.
right.
And I know that you're seeing the people in the credits,
Yeah. Yeah, we always watch, and I have some family members who have been actors, and we did a lot of theater when I was a kid, but because of that, my partner did some theater, did some movies, different things over the years. Her first degree was in art and theater, and so because of that, we watch every single credit in the movie theater. Like they come on, the guys come in, and they're just sitting there looking at us like, there they
I
are
know.
again. They won't leave. They won't leave till it's all done. But it's because we want to honor the work that these people all did.
Yeah, I do. And I think that's because of my background is that way
yeah,
too.
yeah. So
And my thing is there's a lot that's put into movies. And I
oh,
understand when people gripe about the cost of a movie, but when you look at how many people work on a film,
I
that's a
know.
lot of people trying to feed their families.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah,
Now, with that being said, do I think some actors need to be paid what they're getting paid? Absolutely not.
yeah, no, you're right.
I mean, acting is hard. Don't get me wrong, especially if you're doing any kind of physical film or you're stuck out in bad weather,
Yeah,
anything like that. It's not always a pleasant situation. I get it,
yeah,
but it's definitely not worth the dollar amount, because I do know some very hardworking actors out there, local actors who work just as hard and are not making
yeah.
bank like that.
Get that. Yeah, yeah. I see using grammar and spelling and brainstorming. Yes, writing words. Why? I don't know. That's what I wonder too. Like you
I
must
know
be.
the content
What
and
would
the.
motivate you
Mhm.
to do that? Is it
Yeah, and I
allergy?
don't know if I'm even pronouncing her name
Yeah,
right, Margaret, but later, if you look at some of Mary Higgins Clark, and it's the books that I have not read of hers yet, they're
okay.
later in her series of
Yeah,
books that she wrote. Rip to Mary Higgins Clark because she's passed, and
yeah,
I
yeah,
absolutely adore her work. At
yeah.
least her earlier stuff that I've read, and I've read most of her stuff, but like in later years, I have not. But yeah, check and see.
I
She
had
wrote with
just
them.
not recently, but had been watching that author's name and noticing, and so had just said not long ago, I probably should get to one of those. So
Mhm.
now I definitely will do that. Um, yeah, I have not read. I don't think I've ever read a James Patterson. If I,
I like his work. Now I will say the Women's Murder Club books, the few that I have read, I really enjoyed. And
yeah,
I have liked some of his older books that were like one off, like I want to say Beach Road, maybe, or The Lake House, something like that. And
uh-huh.
then I have read a couple of Alex Cross. Now I have a bunch of his books on my shelves and I just have not,
Yeah, a
you
lot of
know,
people do. The plot of Singing in the Rain, using an unknown actress's voice to feather the nest. Yes, I do remember that. Exploitive to retain the power. Same with AI. That's so interesting. I never would have really put those things together. But yes, there were a lot of actresses that came in and did different things, and they could manipulate it so you didn't realize it wasn't that actress. So they didn't have to do as much of the of the work, and then the other person got some support for that, probably got paid for that, but
yeah.
not it to any fame on their own part, I would.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Nora Roberts, her books like The Witness, The Search, The Obsession are not what they used to be. Yeah, I have one that I was gonna unhaul. Somebody gave it to me or something happened. And then I was like, I think it was called The Collection or The Collector. And then I had another one called Come Sundown. And I have looked at those two books more than once and thought, am I ever going to read those books? And so I just keep going back and forth, back and forth. But I have read a couple Nora Roberts. I used to read them when I was in college, but I was going for my degree as an older, for my next degree as an older person when I was I had kids. So anyway, I had trimesters. So during my time off between trimesters, I would read Nora Roberts quick because I just wanted to do something and get my
Yeah.
mind off of all the crap that I had
You wanted a fun read instead of what you've been reading.
Like, yeah, and that's the only reading I ever got done then. But that was my Nora Roberts stage. The controversy is for using it to correct is that it could have been corrected by ADR with actors. Yes, and that's the other thing because they come in and do those.
Yeah, so Jamie has a very good point with AI. They don't have to pay actors, and that's where I think
they don't have to pay coaches what they pay other coaches. Yeah, if they're AI coaches, yes,
yeah, absolutely. And I think that is that to me bothers me a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, controversial because that would have been done by audio engineers who would have been paid. Exactly. Yeah. Which I have a friend who does do that and is very successful at it. Yeah, Margaret, get us going when we'd have had wine, it would be even worse, right?
Yes, it would be.
Yes, they do. I love that too. In fact, we had to do that sometimes for shows that we did. And in fact,
it's so much fun. It's so much fun.
It really, really is. I love doing it. It's just, I don't have as much time as I used to. Some authors are really that prolific, like John Creasy, but now it's hard to know. Yeah. Well, that's good. And that's the thing. How would you know? And I don't know the answer to that. Somebody asked me the other day if I thought Louise Penny was, had a ghostwriter. And I said, I have no reason to believe that she does. And I think she's a little bit more engaged with people about her writing and where she is in different things and what, I don't know. I just see her social media posts now and again as she does interviews and stuff. I have no idea, but I don't sense that from her because they all seem, pretty consistent. But then again, I don't know.
My bubble was burst when I just found out recently that Carolyn Keene was not a real woman.
Carolyn Keene was not, and she was a man-owned corporation.
A group of people. I'm like, yes. Oh my gosh, you don't even know who the people are. There's a book out about that, and I want to get that book to read it. Yes, but I was like,
we should read that. I was horrified when I read that.
I'm like, I can't believe Carolyn Keene is not a real person. I refer to her as Carolyn Keene when I talk about a Nancy Drew book, but I'm just like, that just took out all the fun.
It took out my whole, I was like, I was reading those as a kid, and that was some guy, like the wizard behind the curtain. Like he was.
I know. I'm like, what the heck?
Not that I have a thing about men.
Why did you have to do that?
That I thought it was a woman because
I'm like, why you had to do that to me? And I do think that has a lot to do with why some of her books, like they are up and down for me. Like some of them are a little more gritty than others. And I'm like, this is not necessarily what Nancy Drew would do.
No, these are different people. That's right. We probably should get back to the book that we brought to the mind, but these are so much fun.
Well, this is because of this.
That's right. Question. Yeah. So good. The Academy is considering whether they should disclose, similar to CGI, which I think is important. This famous sound effect trick, rain, but yes, meat in a frying pan. That is so funny. I never would have thought that was true until I realized watching something that it was. Jamie watches all the credits with us. See, we'd all finish our popcorn together watching the credits. Worked in film. It is good. Yeah, Lisa has credit in a movie that I'll not be able to remember the name of now, but it was Ali Sheedy, I think, was in it.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, but I could be wrong about that too. I was at a writing conference a couple of years ago. A guy asked how much he needed to change an AI-generated book for it to be his. Oh my gosh. He stood up and said it.
I would not have even
People are so bold.
Question. Oh my gosh.
People are so boldly cheating. What is HRCYED? Let me think. I have to think about that.
I don't know what that is.
You're going to have to spell some of it out. Love the Women's Murder Club books. I have some murder club book, but I don't know.
Swank is like, and Frank Dixon, yes. And Frank Dixon, I was just like so crazy.
Yeah. We really have gone down a rabbit hole.
We only have one more question left, and then our overall thoughts.
Yeah. But we do need to know HRCYED. Hardest reading challenge you've ever done. Readathon.
Okay.
When is that? Oh my!
I don't know about that. If that's this month, it's not happening.
Oh, I was gonna say if it's this month, I'm not doing that. But Thanks for telling us, because I would have never known what that was. All right, what's our last question? Are we on our last question?
Yeah, what are some hurdles facing both Bon V and the city of New Orleans? What do you say?
I had trouble with this one.
I mean, for me, I just think economics,
Yes.
crime, and then the infrastructure. And I say that about the infrastructure because the potholes and,
yes.
that were mentioned in it, the economics, like you've got people who didn't seem like they were able to live on what they were making.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy for Minna to get a new job when she was let go from her job, but then Virgil was able to help out.
Yeah.
So that's what I've just thought. And then also the crime factor, that the bat is given to Ricky because there's some neighborhoods you shouldn't be alone, which I did think that was kind of ironic that Ricky would be in some areas by herself. I was like,
Yeah, to go from being married in LA, which LA has its own level of crime, right? And some scariness. And then to come all the way to New Orleans that far from your parents alone, it is quite, it's a slight unrealistic, premise, but people do it. I mean, there's no question. When my daughter said, I want to live in New Orleans, she was 9 years old. And I was like, oh, she won't want to do that.
And there she is living in New Orleans.
And she wanted to do it. She was young. And I got to tell you, I spent a lot of sleepless nights. I still spend some sleepless nights now and again, but like they went to Mardi Gras, they went to Endymion last night and they took the baby, which is Endymion is a parade you can do that for, but they went to Muses that Thursday night before. Girl, I didn't sleep well at all. I kept looking at Facebook, see if she'd posted that they were home. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to text and say, are you home?
Right.
And her, well, yeah, I'm home. I'm asleep. Thanks for waking me up, but it's not. So that's what I was going to say. This is a hard thing I had about it. I know this is a cozy mystery, so she wouldn't make any other choice about this. So I'm not suggesting that she should have, but I would say that the city of New Orleans represented in the Bayou Book Thief is very different than the city of New Orleans that we know day to day. And it is a very scary city. And so I think what worries me slightly is when I read books like this is that even the one we read last year, it does sort of talk a little bit about crime. This one, not as much as the one we did last year, like you said.
Yeah, the one last year.
Yeah.
You have to be careful when you go, for sure. You need to know when to go, what time to be out, be with a bunch of people, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you
and I
not
do
necessarily as much leaving that bar. People don't leave bars often alone. Women don't leave bars often alone. And I very rarely go outside at night when I stay at her house. I mean, you
just never know. You never know who could be lurking.
Just don't. And it's a good neighborhood, really, considering some of the neighborhoods and some of the things that could happen. But you absolutely don't know. And and my daughter's had a shooting on her street, not far from her. I mean, she could see it from her house after it happened, obviously. But I mean, it is a very difficult city. So what I love about this book is that it brings you sort of this light version of New Orleans.
Yes. Like, I don't really think there's, like, to me, the biggest thing is like just the economic part of it is that both Bon V, they need something to sustain the museum, and Ricky coming in is going to help with that funding, that they're trying to work together to keep this alive and relevant for the community. And that's kind of like New Orleans in general, is just having the tourism and having good economics coming. Like, for example, I mean, this was written obviously before the January 1st incident. That may stop people from coming because you've never had anything quite so awful as that happening, and so you think about Mardi Gras Day, how many people are going to be trusting enough? Well, just based on the photos I'm seeing, people are still going out and they're supporting the city.
They are.
But, what if they decided, no, we don't want to? Well, then that's a big factor for the economics of New Orleans. They rely on the hotels, the tourism, and there relies on people being there. So you have to have some confidence in the safety of the city in order to be down there, for people to be paying money, their hard-earned money, to be down there.
Yeah. And I got to say, the Super Bowl, having been scheduled way ahead, obviously it always is, but the Super Bowl, I think, suffered from a number of things, but I think it suffered a little bit, definitely
because of that.
A little bit because of what happened in January. And people just didn't feel safe in going. And
Yeah.
of course, the access to be able to afford a Super Bowl ticket, to me,
Oh,
that's
yes.
I don't even know how we got to where we are with that, but it just makes me crazy. Like one of my daughter's friends they were opening up a Hot Works in Mobile. And if you live anywhere near Mobile, which I think, is it Margaret? Somebody lives near Mobile. Yeah. Somebody in our little group does. Anyway, they're opening up a Hot Works, and she was sharing and doing different things. And I was selling, congratulations. And he said, yeah. And I said, congratulations to your team for going to the Super Bowl. And he said, I wish we could get a ticket. And I said, I wish you could too, but they are hard to get for regular everyday people. They are hard to get. A vintage cookbook mystery. Well, doesn't that sound fun? Yes.
And I was going to tell you I lied. We have 2 more questions, but
Yes,
they're not very long.
yes, we do. Yeah, I think that too, Margaret. That's my problem, is I don't want people to read this book and then think, oh, I'm going to go run over to, not that you can't go to Bayou Beer Garden and walk home, but you should have somebody with you. And
Yeah, don't do it alone. That's what I would
Yeah,
say. Don't
exactly.
do it alone.
And yes, we're very careful. I mean, I was raised in Chicago, so obviously I was, I've always known about scary people, but
Yeah, Margaret's in Portland.
not
I'm
Margaret.
wondering if we're thinking about Janet Literary Love lives kind of close.
Maybe.
Travis, he lives kind of close.
Yeah, I know that we've got at least one person. If Mobile. Oh yeah, Angela Quarles. Yeah, I don't think she's been in our readathons, but yeah, they're not real. They're not real. Okay, what's our next question?
Which character do you relate to most?
Oh, probably Ricky.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, probably Ricky, because my ex-husband was a little bit of a challenging guy, and he's lucky he's still alive. But also because I kind of just, I loved my parents and I stayed really connected to them, but I also didn't mind living somewhere else and, traveling, and not always alone, but yeah, I was pretty much okay with that. And I like big cities. If I had my, which is really funny because I say that and then I say, but everything's so scary. But I really do like big cities. Where I live now is the second largest city in Mississippi. However, it's not very large. It's not, it's not what we're what we're talking about. But I do love New Orleans for a lot of reasons. Don't get me wrong. It's a great place. But I think probably Ricky, because of the work she did with books too. And because she, I'd like to think I'm kind to people, but I really do have this empathy that I just want to fix everything and help people and make sure that they're all okay. And so I would be her, I'd be saying, in fact, if there was a real life murder mystery, I'd be the one, that would say, look, this morning I went out to take trash out. My neighbor's cat, I didn't realize he was very close, and he saw me and he went, ah, and I stood, ah, we both did this thing, and he jumped up on our fence. And I was like, I'm sorry, Oreo. I didn't see you there. And then he falls into the yard. And then, of course, I'm like, oh, my gosh. And I'm running back into my house and trying to go see if he's okay. And he said, he's a cat. He's fine. It's like, but he just went so
They
far.
always land on their feet.
They always do. But it just looked so scary. Yeah.
I think for me, maybe Lila Brandt. She's a little bit older. She's a working mother dealing with her teenage. Now, I didn't have a teenage daughter, but I understand how teenagers could be,
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of think, like always being stressed, not taking time for myself to do what I need to, self-care. That's kind of who I kind of related to.
Yeah, that's true for me too. Yeah, I would say that's probably a combo between, because Ricky definitely had an easy kind of a situation. She'd go to work, come home, have drinks with her friends, go home. You know what I mean? So, I mean, she didn't have air conditioning, but
Yeah, right. That would have been terrible.
That was terrible. Yeah. I wouldn't mind. The UK, definitely I could do that too. I would love to live out my days somewhere else. I just love my little kids so much. No, my older and little kids so much. It's hard to leave them. Miss Lori Marple, that would have been me. When I was a kid, I think I told you guys, maybe not you guys, but in videos, I started reading Agatha Christie's when I was like 9. My sister pushed him into my room and said, hey, read this and see what you think. And I was just hooked. It was just like, oh, this is the best thing. And I couldn't solve any of them, and I still can't. And I thought it was because
I cannot.
But
I've yet to solve one. It drives me crazy. I
yeah,
mean, I didn't really solve this one either.
no,
Uh,
I
I
either.
mean,
I
I
got
wasn't
a little
expecting, because
closer,
not
but
only did you have one, you had two murderers.
yeah,
And I thought that was pretty clever on her part, but
yeah, I did too.
I didn't
Yeah.
see that coming.
I didn't either. Yeah. I went to a yard sale yesterday morning where they sold mostly collectibles, from different Comic-Con kinds of things and whatnot, which is not really my jam, but my partner was happy. But I ended up getting 4 Agatha Christie novels.
Oh, you were lucky.
Because they were all that same that publisher that does and they're bigger, they're hardbacks, and they have the different 2 color blocks, and and so I was like, oh, and I had 2 of them already in my stash, but I was like, but I still, they're just this collector's,
Yeah.
and so I want those. So I love those for sure. The chick that ran the restaurant in the mansion painted her face
Oh, Zella.
to a guide. Yeah, that is a good one. That's true. That would be fun. I
So
probably
that's
would.
what Swank
Yeah,
it relates to that one.
yeah, yeah.
So
And then,
our last question is, what role do you think vintage cookbooks can play in today's world?
do you want to answer it first? Or you want me to answer it? And you
Yeah,
guys
you can go
answer it
first.
too. So
I
it's
mean, I have an
interesting.
answer, but
I had a laughter moment that was quite extensive because that one recipe that they picked out, that was like literally they wanted to throw up just thinking
yes.
about the combination of those foods. I have a lot of memories of that kind of situation in my childhood where somebody would bring something and they would, say you had to, try this, and all of us, all my cousins, we would just be like, oh God, no, please go, don't, and then we'd send signals to each other, don't do it, don't eat
Right.
that. So vintage cookbooks can be both a blessing and a real curse, but I do I have collected, not necessarily vintage, but I do collect cookbooks that I think are valuable in some way to me or to my family, or have some sort of representation that I think are good. But I had a friend, my best friend, who unfortunately passed way earlier than she should have, and we miss her so very much. She had so many. This is what reminded me of her, although she's definitely older than Ricky, but she had so many vintage cookbooks, and
Oh, wow.
she just loved that. And she would try all these different recipes, and she'd call us. She lived right down the street, and she'd call and say, "Come on, we're having this, we're having that tonight, we're having this," And it just made her whole life happy. So I think that if they make you happy, then you should collect them.
Yeah, I'm right with you. The memories of childhood for nostalgic purposes, I
Yes.
think is wonderful. But also, I think it's a nice way to learn about a historical period of time,
Yeah.
or about a region or culture around the world.
Yeah.
Like to see what they were doing during that time, or how it fits in, especially like in New
Yeah.
Orleans. Like if you're picking up
Yeah.
things there in New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'm curious about some of the recipes, because the one about the etouffee kind of
Yeah.
seems similar to what how my husband makes his etouffee. But I want him to look at it and just see how close it is to it. I don't think he uses Worcestershire sauce in it, but I'm curious about trying the old-fashioned gingerbread.
I love that one. I did browse over them. Like I said, I'm not a coconut patty kind of girl, so that one was not my jam. But the gingerbread definitely did have my attention. And I remember looking at the crawfish etouffee and thinking, do people use cream of chicken soup? Cream of golden mushroom soup? I didn't.
Yes.
I always thought it was. Yeah. So I was surprised by that. But
Yeah, my husband wants to try to find something different that he can substitute for that.
Yeah,
Because he doesn't like the salt aspect of it. Now you can get a reduced sodium, can or whatever. And I think that's what he does. But he's like, I really want to see if I can find one that does not. And I think this, like etouffee, at least his is, it's not like a red gravy base. Like,
gotcha. Yeah. Okay.
Etouffee can go either way. There's
that's what it was. Yeah, because I was like, well, where did they? Yeah, but I don't cook a lot of stuff like that for various reasons. But Margaret, that's a great idea. I would have never thought about that, but that does give you a point in time, some ways, and gives you some back story kinds of stuff. Well, maybe not backstory, current story kinds of things when you're writing. Yes, I understand that. I think if you got them, you should hang on to them. I had some, and then we had this hurricane thing, but Pop
I
culture
agree.
representation, yes.
Yeah.
Capital of time, yeah. I make my own cream soups. Oh, that would be so good. You know what's funny? Not funny. This is not funny at all. I don't know why I said that's funny. What's
You're
interesting,
probably saying it's funny because it's weird.
ironic, right? So we had a death in the family. My daughter-in-law's grandmother died a few weeks ago, and we were going over there and trying to support her and her family. She has a huge family. The woman who passed, it was her grandma, as I said, she had 8 kids, and then she had like 15 grandkids and 29 great grandkids. I mean, we're just talking about a village. So they weren't all in my kid's house that same time, but we went over there to. I made a chicken pot pie with cream of chicken soup. Here I am judging the cream of chicken. I made a chicken pot pie for him. I made 2 of them actually, because you try to bring food and whatever. So I'm over there, I'm making this and whatever. And she comes back. My daughter-in-law comes back with her Aunt Nancy and her mom. They've gone to the funeral home. They're making arrangements. And I said, okay, the chicken pot pies are over here. They're all done. This is in the fridge for this. There's your dessert. Da, 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 da. We're headed out. You all take care of yourselves, blah, blah, blah. And Aunt Nancy looks at me and says, is there cream of chicken soup in that? And I said, yes, Nancy, there is. And she said, I'm allergic to MSG. I can't eat it. And I felt so bad. Here I am, like trying to be this great, come on in. We're going to bring it. We're going to come take care of you. We're going to, and so I need to remember that. So maybe I need the recipe for cream soup from scratch. I'm sure there is.
Yes, Dina, you're going to have to share.
Maybe if you want to share that with me, I would not say no to it, because I can't make cream of chicken. I can't put cream of chicken in anything if Aunt Nancy's going to eat it. So I'm glad she asked, though, because I would have felt even worse if she would have eaten it and then gotten, a reaction.
Really sick, yeah.
I never even think about that, because I'm not allergic to MSG. So, but I'm allergic slightly to coconut. So that's one of the reasons I just don't do a whole lot of coconut stuff. But it's basically gravy. Okay. Well, yeah. And you know what? I used to just do like a broth, and then I would kind of, I don't know, maybe I used flour. I don't remember, but I kind of made it more. Yeah, I made it a little bit, but I was in a hurry. I went to the Walmart, I grabbed all the stuff I needed, took it over there, made the stuff. So you shouldn't get in a hurry if you want to make good food. That's what my grandma always said.
Mm-hmm.
But I need to remember that sometimes. Yes, I think this was a great sort of a bit of a nostalgia. Yes, I'll start with a roux. That's what I was thinking. A bit of nostalgia, a bit of modern day kind of issues. So we want to tell them how we rated it.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I love the New Orleans references. I think that Ellen Byron did a wonderful job of creating a visual setting that really honors the city of New Orleans. If you are not from New Orleans, I think you'll appreciate the atmosphere that she created. And if you are from New Orleans, you appreciate that she got it right.
Yes, exactly.
So I do think she visually captured the atmosphere of the city. I think most of the characters were likable and well developed. The ones that really counted did. I think it was well paced, well plotted. So yeah, there's a lot of good things about the book. I ended up giving it a solid 4 stars. That's what I landed on.
Good for you. And we have another 4-star rating for sure.
Yeah, I didn't figure out the killer either. So
I didn't either. So that made me happy. I had some moments where I've had a moment where I thought it might be Lila. Because she was just so kind of absent. I was like, what happened to her? Is she out there?
Well, that's what I think. She did a good job of putting people with motive and stuff. And she had a lot of good red herrings here and there. I think there was some things that she probably could have cut out. But I don't know if the reason she kept him in, like a bear, for example. He was one that I was like, that whole little subplot could have been taken out and we still could have had a really great story, a really great plot. But he might come back.
Yeah, he could. That's absolutely true. So I agree. I loved the way that they set it up. It seemed pretty realistic to me. Obviously, there were a few things that they would not share in a cozy mystery that really actually happened in New Orleans. One of my kids sent me a video the other night of somebody who was thrown up outside of the, thrown up out the window of their car, because it's Mardi Gras. But So you didn't need that in your little
Right.
cozy mystery. So I really thought it was well done. I think she was an Agatha Award winner too, which I was excited to see on the back of my copy. But I thought she was a great writer. I think it paced well. I didn't get bored. I kept on. I really wanted to finish it. For all those reasons, I definitely gave it a 4 too. And I was trying to think of what would have given me a little bit more of a boost. And I don't even know, except, I generally feel the same about most cozies. They're usually a 4, sometimes a 3, as we had last year. But I think maybe it was the number of characters that you kind of had to keep track of for me, and a little bit of the kind of, there were a few things that might have been a little unrealistic, but then again.
Well, one thing I did think was a little realistic were the 2 people that got married at the end. I'm
Yeah, that
like,
was a little bit of a
okay, really?
yeah,
I mean, it's been that
yeah.
long, so it was a little
He didn't
far-fetched,
have much that
but
either. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
That's true. That's true for me too. That was a little bit unnecessary.
yeah,
Maybe
Bear.
if they had gotten married, that would have been different. But yeah, exactly. He was a red herring. He was indeed a red herring. 3 from Jamie. Atmosphere. Most of the characters. Cozy's not really your things. Yeah. Ricky was kind of. I'm gonna think all these things. All these people are guilty. All these people, and I'm gonna tell this woman what.
Well,
to do.
that's why I put her, that as one of her flaws, Jamie, was because it was like, okay, you're kind of reaching, and like jumping to these conclusions, and then it wouldn't end up going anywhere. But then some of them were humorous. Like, I did think it was hilarious about her being up on the roof and then getting caught by Virgil, and she had seen this. So, of course, she jumps to the conclusion, about the relationship between Minna and Virgil, and it was nothing like that kind of thing. So I do think in that aspect, I didn't mind those kind of jumping conclusions, but some of them, it was like, I kind of felt like the detective. Like, call me when you really have a leg to stand on.
Something that I need to know about. Yeah. And I have, of course, there's one of you that knows whether or not this happens, but I have a suspicion that she and Virgil become closer.
Yeah, I'm curious.
Yeah. Oh, good. Baking yesteryear. We have I don't know if you ever see this guy. I don't know how prolific and how, people are following him in different places because he's local. He lives in my neighborhood, but his Facebook group page is called Your Barefoot Neighbor.
Yeah.
And he cooks with cream and mushroom soup. We're not talking about gourmet cooking here, but he's funny. He's quick to get it done. Throw it on your table. It's going to be good, whatever, blah, blah, blah. He's fun. He's a fun guy. He has a lot of different challenges with people posting comments about him, and, he's gay, so people attack him, different things. But for the most part, he has just simple, easy food and filling, he likes it to be filling. But I was thinking about that the other day when I was reading this. I was like, oh, I wonder if he wants to read a book about about somebody who loves cooking and cookbooks and all this.
Yeah, this is definitely a book that I wouldn't hesitate to recommend to people.
I wouldn't either. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah. I mean, it is. And I think because they had been apart for so long and that they had been so connected, that was really,
it was sweet. It was just, I was like, that just seems too.
It was rushed for sure.
Right.
It was definitely a rush. So, well, thank you all so much for joining us for this time together. And we look forward to doing this again next year, obviously. And probably the readathon for me is coming to a close today. Is it for you too, even though it's not?
I have one book, and that's what I'm planning on trying to finish today. I thought I could finish it before March. So I decided I should be starting Week of Weird today, but I decided, let me finish this last book. I didn't get to everything on my Mardi Gras Readathon TBR that I wanted to. Same with Folklore February. But I just figure if I can get this book finished, then this will be it for me for the Mardi Gras Readathon. I won't be adding anything else.
Yeah, me either. I may get to one if it's there's one that's short that I may be able to get to, but I'll be doing my reading wrap up probably today or tomorrow. I'll be filming it, so I don't want to finish anything else. So thank you so much for joining us.
Christina.
Sure, we're going to do something again soon. You can find Kat on all of her streams, as you know, and her sprints, and I'm going to try really hard to make sure people don't schedule on Wednesday afternoons, but I just can't always keep that from
I
happening.
know, I know. Thank you so much, Jamie, Stina, Swank, Margaret, everyone who was here today. We really appreciate you taking the time to
Indeed.
read the
Yes.
book and to hang out with us.
Yes, yes. Okay. Well, happy reading, everybody. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.